Hi everyone, my name is Esra. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at WEISS UCL and I will be talking about laser-generated focused ultrasound transducers in terms of their therapeutic potential for minimally invasive procedures. LGFU transducers rely on the optical generation of ultrasound, which has been discussed so far. They comprise an optically absorbing layer and have a concave geometry for focusing the ultrasound waves. Compared to conventional piezoelectric transducers, it is more feasible to generate high-frequency ultrasound with LGFU transducers, which leads to high gain and achieving high pressures at the focus with a tight spot. So the interest in LGFU transducers stem from these advantages. They have been used for various therapeutic applications such as soft tissue ablation, drug delivery, fragmentation of solid materials in microscale, but here the key challenge is with interventional applications, and our particular perspective is to fit these transducers into interventional devices. But the lateral dimensions of these devices, such as catheters, are highly constrained and mostly less than 4 millimeters. And as the transducer diameter gets smaller, it becomes more difficult to reach the therapeutic levels of ultrasound because the materials have a certain damage threshold, so there is a limit in the excitation light energy. To overcome all these challenges, we are exploring fabrication methods that allow for producing transducers at a desired dimension and also exploring their capabilities at smaller scales. For this purpose, we developed a new paradigm for fabricating LGFU transducers. The approach we are taking is based on an elastomeric molding process. We have a publication explaining these methods in great detail if you're interested. Here you see optical microscopy of several transducer cross-sections, and some key advantages of developed fabrication methods are that they're easily scalable according to the varying dimensional requirements of diverse biomedical applications. Also, these methods allow for accommodating various optical absorbers, including diacrylic coatings such as gold nanoparticles. And these types of materials have selective optical absorption so that they are substantially transmissive at other wavelengths for multimodal applications. An example could be simultaneous ultrasound therapy and monitoring. Dr. Sasha Neumark and her team are working on developing materials for optical ultrasound generation and told me that they're happy to be connected if you're interested in the material side. To understand the capabilities of transducers at smaller scales, we conducted some simulation studies using the K-Wave toolbox. As you might know, it is non-trivial and could be computationally challenging to simulate ultrasound fields from curved transducers and in 3D and in the nonlinear regime. So we developed a computationally efficient simulation framework, implementing a 2D axisymmetric model taking advantage of the radial symmetry of the transducers. Also, accurate representation of an acoustic source is crucial, particularly in therapeutic ultrasound, to predict the potential biological effects in tissue. So the other novelty here is that for the more realistic representation of the source, we use radially varying acoustic input distributions. Because the excitation light impinges on a curved surface, each part of the transducer is not getting the same excitation light energy. If the light is artificially divided into equidistantly spaced parts, it can be seen that the geometrical differences between the excitation light and the transducer surface grows toward the edge of a transducer. So to understand this effect on their performance, we modeled several illumination scenarios, including collimated light delivery and diverging light delivery from a tip of an optical fiber, which is frequently used in clinical settings. Here you see an example scenario for a transducer at which we are looking from the top, and as can be seen on the left-hand side of the inset, ideally each part of the transducer should receive a uniform light intensity. However, in reality, the intensity at the edge of a transducer could be as low as the half of the intensity at the center. So due to these non-uniformities in the light intensity, we estimated that the achievable pressure amplitudes at the focal spot is reduced by up to 45% compared to a uniform light intensity case. This reduction could be a potential drawback towards the clinical translation. We validated our model against experimental data for a range of geometries for both linear and nonlinear regimes, and we observed a good agreement between the simulations and the measurements. You may see the technical details if you would like to revisit this presentation. To increase the performance of transducers, we introduced an additional illumination strategy. In the light path, we placed a filter that enables sending more energy to the edges of the transducers, and simulations and measurements showed that the pressure amplitude at the focus could be increased by 35%, and we believe that this is a key finding towards making use of the whole aperture of a transducer, and this illumination scenario could be beneficial in reaching therapeutic levels of ultrasound with smaller scale transducers. Thanks to the computational efficiency of the simulation framework, we could explore various parameters including the radius of curvature and the diameter to predict the capabilities of LGFU transducers. We found that free field cavitation, which is an effect that could be used for ultrasound therapy, can be achieved using transducers with diameters as small as 3.5 mm, and transducers of that scale could be suitable to be integrated into interventional instruments. Lastly, we demonstrated the therapeutic potential by ablating an aluminum foil. Within the zoomed area in the red box, it can be seen that the dimensions of the ablated regions are around 50 micrometers, which is very much spatially confined. As our forward steps, we are planning to include ex vivo and in vivo studies with tissue. Finally, I would like to thank the founders and the members of our group, with special thanks to Adrian, Erwin, Sasha, Brad, Richard, Hendrik, and Jamie. Thanks for listening.